Cool.
It takes just a second. All right. Welcome in. Keep the tabs. I'm Luke.
I'm Colin.
And we've got a big interview this week. We've got MLS veteran, Dynamo fullback, Zarek Valentin. Thanks for joining the show. And we're ready to jump right into it if that's all right with you. First of all, congratulations on the contract extension. We're glad to have you back for a couple more years.
Yes, sir.
At least, right?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it'll be 2 + 1 maybe. After that, who knows? I'll be 32 at that point. Maybe there's someone younger, better. Definitely not better looking, but
yeah. And so, since you've gotten to Houston, how have you liked the city so far? What have you thought of the culture and kind of the whole situation?
It's funny because people constantly ask me that, and sadly, I have the same response, which is probably too expected, but I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Since COVID,
yeah.
it's been difficult to explore. We haven't, my wife, my baby, who's 1 year old, we haven't been able to explore very much. We wanted to go and see the different neighborhoods and things like that, but we've kind of been locked in, as well as being very cognizant of not putting ourselves in precarious situations, because if I get sick, then my teammates get sick, then my family gets sick, and it's just this downward spiral. But the one thing I can say is the diversity immediately has punched me in the face, because coming from somewhere like Portland and coming to the most diverse city in the entire country, it's been great to see that. It's incredible. And in saying that, since there's so much diversity, the restaurant scene is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
While COVID sucks, the amount of food that we've eaten out from Lebanese food, Mexican food, you have crawfish, you have American, you got vegan, you got all these different things, local foods, you got everything around the area. It's just so diverse, and something that is something we completely love and enjoy. And hopefully, judging by the news, hopefully the vaccine by the end of the year, which means that we can all go outside and pretend it's never happened.
Speaking of COVID, as far as MLS seasons go, 2020 is definitely going to go down as one of the most unique, if not the most unique. So what was it like, just dealing with this pandemic while also having to play soccer professionally?
Yeah, I would say that, well, I'll repeat something I told the team. I'm the union rep, and we have a union players chat, and we're constantly getting updates, sadly, about once every week or 2 weeks, that somebody on somebody's team has had COVID. Dallas, Nashville obviously ran through them in the bubble. And then since then, there's been Colorado and a few other outbreaks here and there. And kudos to our team. And I told them, kudos to you guys. We're one of very few amount of teams that's had 0 cases from the staff to the players. And to be in a city where it's considered a hot spot and all these different things, it's a credit to the players for being disciplined enough to not put themselves in a bad situation. Because listen, we're all stir crazy. We all want to go grab a beer, go to a restaurant, go to the Galleria, whatever it might be, just do something that makes us feel normal. And then to have COVID and so many different factors affecting our team, players had to really show a sense of discipline. And I really praise the guys for doing that. I felt a lot of pride being a union rep that never had to say, we had a positive case.
Yeah.
Two or three false positives, but that's, it's going to happen when you do probably over 1,000+ tests over the course of a year. So I really, praise the guys for thinking very selflessly and then being able to move forward and give ourselves a chance on the field to make the playoffs as best as possible.
So it was actually before COVID and all that. It was at FanFest. We actually got a chance to talk to you. I don't know if you remember or not. And we had we joked around
on the side of the field, right?
Say it again.
On the side of the field.
What was that?
FanFest.
At FanFest. Yeah. And we brought up like, oh, glad you're not in Nashville or something like that.
Yeah, and we just wanted to say, that was a great experience getting to meet you, and we're glad to have you part of the team. But we did make the joke about Nashville, and it's just kind of sucks that, Nashville made the playoffs this year, and it's kind of you were on the wrong side of that because you had to come to the Dynamo and how that was.
Yeah, I agree. And the playoffs are such a small margin.
Yeah.
Because you look at the two games, and one of the games against Nashville, we should have beat them handedly. The other one, we didn't perform our best. So things are such a small margin. And coming into a team that is completely trying to revamp an identity is for me more exciting than potentially going to an expansion team. And I've had the experience of going to an expansion team, because the expansion team, you go in and you have all new players. So it's like this shell shock of trying to get on the same page. And to be quite honest with you, for me, the easiest way to go out and play a soccer game would be to play a 4-4-2 in a conservative manner, and then try to potentially get goals from that point. Nashville's doing that. They have some really great players. So I have some really good friends on that team. I know Danny Lovitz, he's a Philly guy. Dax McCarty's one of my brother's closest buddies. I know Walker. I know a few of those guys, and like they have very good players, and they play a very good system. Don't get me wrong, but I prefer our system. There's a lot more risk with the way we play, but I'd prefer to play in a system like that than necessarily be behind the ball. And when I was in Norway, my team was known as Norway's best counterattacking team. And to be a good counterattacking team, you have to sit back. We'd be at home, 11 guys behind the ball in our own half, and it was fun because you're playing the game that you love, but you're sitting there going, man, we have like 25% possession. And we might get a win here and there, but it's not great. So regardless of Nashville, all the 10 minutes that I was there virtually in that city was fantastic. And ultimately, my biggest bragging right is Derrick Henry was the one who announced my name. Said it perfectly, everything. So I always go back to some of my friends, fantasy football talk, make sure I got the clip loaded. Derrick Henry comes out. He's like just towering over the reporter and said my name. And I was like, you know what? I want to exchange jerseys and kind of make a joke about it one day. But I'm happy I'm here instead of Nashville.
So speaking of the expansion draft, you've been drafted twice in that. And so can you just walk us through the feeling of, you've got to play in a totally different city with a totally different club at the drop of a hat?
It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking, but ultimately I think it depends on it depends where you're at in your life, how will you approach the situation. I was single. I was 20 years old, and I was going from Chivas USA to Montreal. And I heard Montreal from one of my teammates in Chivas who was Canadian, said Montreal is one of the best cities in North America. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll give it a shot. Loved it. Amazing. You get to go there. And what's cool about going to an expansion team is the fans in some situations are immediately latched on to the players in MLS in which they draft.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a few that come up through, USL or NASL ranks. Look at Christian Ramirez. Christian Ramirez came from there, brought up to the Minnesota first team, so he was even closer. And there was a few in Montreal, but typically I was one of the youngest guys on the team and one of the first draft picks in the expansion draft. And I think fans liked it because I tried to embrace the culture. It's a French-Canadian culture, and they're very protective of their own. And I tried to embrace that, in which I think they really liked and liked me as a player because of that, and kind of gave me breaks here and there. But it's exciting. It's nerve-wracking because, you have this expectation to win. Montreal is a city where they're very hard on their teams. And I appreciate that because it meant they cared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when fans aren't hard on players, they don't care as much. But if you go, and I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and we are extremely hard on our team. Yeah. Because we care so much. And it was like that in Montreal. So it was a very fun experience. And I'm one of like 7 guys that's been picked in 2 expansion drafts. So I, added to the resume.
So Luke is like the one that's really big in the NFL. I'm not so big.
I'm a Texans fan, so you know how that goes.
We always talk about like
pretty much. Fuller's been great. Fuller's been great for me this year.
I got him on my fantasy team too. Yeah.
We always talk about the parity between like playing away as in NFL and playing away in soccer.
And in soccer, it just seems that playing on an opposing team's field is such a disadvantage. And do you have anything you can shed a light on that and kind of, go into that?
So if you're football, then what sport do you follow then?
Well, we follow them all, but I'm, big.
I'm like soccer's my main thing, and then like he's like everything. He has like general knowledge on everything. Cool. And yes, sir. And
keep going.
And the parody, like I don't know. He says it's not like that hard.
Football, it's like that you can play away, and it's not seen as it's like a huge disadvantage. But as in soccer, I see it's talked about before the game constantly. It's usually talked about during the game. It's said to be a factor by the coaching staff and interviews. And so, just kind of shed some light into that.
Yeah, there's definitely advantages playing home and away easily. And you can look at travel. You can look at sleeping in your own bed. You can do these things. And jokingly enough, when I was with the Timbers had an incredible home field advantage because the fans, if you watch any game, it's like dope. But I always said it's funny because the team almost played better at times on the road because we had so many dads on the team. So that when we would travel, the dads finally got like a night and a half sleep. So they would like sleep we used to have optional breakfast. So the guys we'd get in at, let's say 6 o'clock, eat dinner. And the guys would sleep from, let's say 10 o'clock till 10 o'clock, 12 hours. So they wake up just like, this is the greatest thing in the world. They're rested and they can go in and they're cruising. They're like, I haven't slept 12 hours in 3 weeks since the last road trip. So for the Timbers, it was funny because that was interesting. And that was just something I used to kind of mess around with. But the disadvantage is, let's say football. Let's say in football, and you're the Texans, and you go down and Deshaun Watson throws a touchdown to Fuller. Great. Rack up the fantasy points.
Yeah.
Their team immediately goes off the field.
Yeah.
And there's a TV timeout.
Exactly. Yeah, they get a break. Yeah.
And they kick off. And there's another timeout.
Yeah.
Another TV timeout. And they walk out, and the other team can slow the pace of the game down. And there's nothing a defense can do. Literally, the defense can't press and force them to make moves. The offense dictates the tempo. And so minimally for 3 or 4 plays, if it's a 3 and out, then the team has slowed the game down enough to kill the vibe from the fans, right? Soccer doesn't happen.
No.
Because a lot of times, let's just say you're playing away and some team's under it at BBVA and we're going and Mauro hits the post and it goes out for a goal kick. Fans get into it. Okay, cool. Then we press and we can immediately force their action. And then guess what? They don't know what to do. They kick it long. We win the first ball, second ball. We get it back immediately. And then we get a cross and then they clear out for a corner kick. And suddenly momentum starts to build. Momentum shifts happen a lot more in soccer than in other sports because of the fact that teams can influence the play on and off the ball. And when fans react positively and loudly, players draw energy from that. And you could see, for me, the best example, sadly, we only played one home game with a full stadium. But if you looked at that second half of the Galaxy game, we crushed them.
We went to the game.
We were there, yeah.
So we crushed them, and we came out on the front foot. And we kept getting closer, and you could feel it, and you could feel the energy. And then they'd kick off, and then they goal kick, we win the ball, and we keep going. Hit the post, another goal kick, corner kick, and then we keep, fulfilling that momentum. And then eventually, when another team gets tired, the effect is when you get tired, you don't think as quickly, and then thus you make mental mistakes, bad passes, bad touches, turnover. And then when that happens, the fans get on you. They might whistle, they might do these different things.
Yeah.
Then you can draw energy from that. So soccer is a very fluid sport, and there's not much there. You can't kill it. Every once in a while you can fake an injury, but that's maybe a minute or two.
Yeah.
But soccer is so fluid and fun that when you're away and you have your fans, giving you energy when you're down a goal or tied, it's really unlike many other sports.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
So going a little bit more into, you're a native you're a bilingual speaker. So how beneficial do you think that is in a league that has a lot of players from South America, to be able to speak both English and Spanish?
It's everything for me personally. I am a very loud person, extremely loud. And my teammates will tell you that, and coaching staff and fans and friends. I'm extremely loud.
Support that.
And, excuse me?
We support
that.
Perfect. Great. Even better. So for me, it's one of these things where I'm not a huge fan of defending. Nobody should be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I enjoy the mental matchup 1v1, and don't get me wrong, but do I want to defend for 90 minutes? No, nobody does. You enjoy it when you're having the ball, pressing, crossing, scoring goals. That's what's fun.
Yeah.
And for me, to avoid defending at times, I put my teammates in spots so the ball doesn't get to me. So a lot of times when the ball's rotating around, let's look at this last game with Jonathan Lewis. Jonathan Lewis's movement was so inside of the winger. He would go too early to where Ari didn't have to even move. And I would tell Ari, so like wingers, he's so willing to defend, and so is Nico. And a lot of our guys are so willing to do the work that if I communicate with him early, he doesn't have to move and I move a little bit. And then the center back dribbles up, realizes there's no passes, goes to the other side. Yeah. And eventually that adds up over 90 minutes because that will probably mean that the winger, and I'd be curious to notice that the winger on my side hopefully averages less touches per game by 6, 7, 8, 9 touches per game than he does normally because I try to communicate to put people in spots. And then to where you can do it to speak English to Ari. I can speak Spanish to Victor, Spanish to Monty. Like, that's great.
Yeah.
And when I was with the Timbers, I even tried to, and I used to get made fun of, but I firmly believe that speaking the native tongue of the person you're playing with is beneficial. So I would have an English winger. I'd have Jeremy Abobasi in front of me, English, Diego Chara, Spanish, and I would speak to Larice, and I would speak French to him, like just left, right, like drop, step. And the reason I speak in the native tongue of the player or try to is because the game is played on such small margins, and a half a second for a center back or a outside back or a goalie can mean the difference between making a play and not.
Exactly.
So Larice is from Paris, and if he doesn't have to think when I tell him left or right, and it's like his immediate processing, then he makes that choice. If I say it in English, maybe it's a half a second, maybe it's a full second, and he doesn't fully make the play, or that, that microsecond in his head where he's thinking, oh, right is à droite, so I have to go there. And that difference can mean he's a half a second late, touch, goal. And then we're down 1-0. So for me, being able to speak the native tongue, and I did the same in Norway when I played there, learning, and I was a lot more fluent in Norwegian than I am in French, but just the idea of the game is played on such small margins, and I want to try to limit that. And by communicating in English and Spanish is great on the field, and it makes for making a lot of good friends off the field as well with, a strongly Hispanic locker room.
So speaking of friends, and we've asked this to, we've had interviews Sam Junkwa, and so we like to ask the players, do you have a certain guy on the team that you're closer with than other friends? We played sports in high school, and you always find that one guy that you're closer with than other guys, and we're just wondering if you have that on the Dynamo.
Yeah, definitely one of these situations where you're always closer to certain people for whatever reason.
Yeah.
The where you're at in your life, whether you want to go out and grab dinner with somebody because they're not married, or whether you speak the same language from the same country, right? So it's normal Mati and Tomas Martinez are close.
Yeah.
Argentinian, both young dudes. Again, yeah. Victor has a family. Victor has a wife and a kid. Okay. So they're very different points in their lives.
Yeah.
For me, this year, it was probably Cody Cropper.
Oh,
and we were both new guys coming into the team, but we had played youth national team together. So we've known each other for years. And being both new guys on the team, we didn't know anybody. We knew each other.
Yeah.
So we immediately gravitated towards each other. And it just turns out that our wives were very similar in good ways, where they'd rag on us. They're both incredibly determined people, work their own jobs, do things like that. So we found out that once our spouses were close, that it was easier for, we had a good banter together. And so not to say, I'm a bubbly guy. I talk to a bunch of different people, hang out with a bunch of, I grabbed dinner with Nico and Mike Salazar last night because Nico's leaving. So I have a lot of good friends, but for me, I'd probably say Cody just because when I first got into the team, he was the only person I knew.
Yeah.
I'd gone to teams. When I went to Portland, I had my college friends. I had Darren Maddox, Darlington, Ben Szymanski. I knew a bunch of these guys from previous situations, but Dynamo, I knew nobody. And it was odd for me. So when Cody was signed, I was somewhat relieved that I could just, talk
At
to
least
somebody.
Know somebody. Yeah.
Of course, because my personality is different. I would say it's fun, and I'm loud. People have to kind of get used to the fact that I mean so well. And I'm always joking. I'm high energy all the time, and I think once that was relayed and felt by my teammates, they learned to get close to me and trust me and develop good relationships with me.
So you actually in the U.S. youth level, you played the U20, U16, I believe, and the U23, various youth levels. and Coach Tab did coach you under the U20. Did that connection translate onto the field too, or during practice?
Definitely. And that's one of the reasons I think I ended up here.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that the fact that I was brought in is a combination of a few things. I had a prior relationship with Tab, so I knew him, knew what he expected, and he liked the things that I brought onto the field, whatever that might be. And then I also knew the GM because Matt Jordan worked with me in Montreal.
Okay.
He came from Montreal, so I knew both of them. And it was it was an easy fit once I got here. And I had worked with Tab in the 20s when we were in a few different camps, and just, admired the way he went about things, his professionalism, the knowledge that he had. And he was always an assistant coach, so it didn't always shine through, because as an assistant coach, you're not completely vocal with the head coach because you let the head coach kind of do his thing.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see him step into his own this year and take more of a leading role. And that definitely played a part to me being here, and also just the comfort levels of me on the pitch, and also me wanting to re-sign and stay here and be a part of what we're building.
Yeah. Speaking of the future here in the Dynamo, we have had leaks of a rebrand, and we just wanted to hear your thoughts on if you've seen it or what you think of it, or if you're even able to comment on it.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Okay.
I think there's been some leaks. I would just say it's exciting to be a part of a club and to see the history of it. And for Portland, it was the same from 1975, being a club that played for years. Montreal, the club went back a long time as well. Chivas, not as much. But, with the championships in Houston and the way it's been integrated into the city, and to see to play for a club that has so many trophies, like that's dope, man. Yeah. I haven't, Timbers had one trophy at the time, and to come here and see 4, 5, 6 championships and silverware everywhere, it's fantastic. So to be a part of that is great. And the direction of the club is definitely changing, I would say. We brought in new players, we brought in a new staff. And I think if this quote unquote rebranding goes through, I'm excited to be a part of that and see where it goes. And I know that no matter what happens, the club has put so much thought and effort into integrating the city, the fans, and the culture into what is the Houston Dynamo. Is that a good answer? Was that okay?
That was a pretty good answer. We didn't know if you could comment on it or not, so we totally understand.
Rebrands usually
commenting.
Yeah.
Rebrands usually don't go that well. With the Chicago Fire one, I don't know if do you like the Chicago Fire one or not? I like it, honestly.
It's interesting because when you grow up in MLS, you kind of have this attachment.
Yeah.
I understand. To certain logos. So it's different, but I would just say stay tuned and you'll get even more of my opinion on the topic.
Perfect.
It was with what you said about the crest you get attached to, it's whenever we heard the news that you were coming to the Dynamo from Portland, I've never been a fan of the MLS whenever you didn't play in Portland, so it was weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you get attached, and the issue is it's difficult, man. I try to be as honest as possible and transparent because I want people to know me and know the real me. I don't want to give fake answers and fluff and all this BS that people always throw around that are these cookie cutter answers. And it was tough for my family and I to leave because we had made Portland home. I had my first kid there. We bought our first house. That was my first place after Norway. It's the first place we lived together. That was home. We made so many good friends. The Timbers, I knew everybody in the organization. In the organization, I knew them by name. I knew almost everything. I made it a priority to do that. And I think I tried to embody what the fans, wanted to see on the field, whether I played great or not. And we were very attached. And it took us by surprise to leave, to be completely honest. I was told a day, 24 hours before, not even. My agent called me and said, I think you might get taken. And then there's a series of phone calls and all these different things, and we just still didn't even know the team. And then it all happened, and it was a whirlwind because I talked to Matt and Tab and for like a minute, and then we hung up the phone, and I remember thinking like, holy shit,
Wow.
I'm traded. I'm gone. Like this house that we just bought less than a year ago, we got to figure it out. And Cam's nursery, in which we just decorated, that's not his nursery anymore. That's going to be a guest bedroom for somebody. So it happened extremely quickly, and it took us off guard. And it was definitely hard. But I looked at it in a sense, I'm an ultimate positive person. A team traded their starting goalie to bring me in.
Yeah.
And now has re-signed me. So the team showed me from day one that they wanted me here. And that's more than any club has ever done for me. And that's where I want to be ultimately. You can be comfortable in your life because your family and things like that, but professionally, for to do the things that the Dynamo's done for me has made me want to be a part of what they're building, what the new Dynamo way will be. And we showed that a little bit, and we tried to change things this year. And Houston wasn't built in a day. There's 6 wards. It took time for these things to get built. And the culture before I got here wasn't great, to be completely honest. And we tried to change that. There's a few results. I can look at 2 games against Minnesota. I can look at the Nashville game. I can look at Kansas City game where we came back and won. The 2, we tied the other 3. But to be honest, I don't think that the old Dynamo team gets points in any of those games.
Yeah.
I don't think they do.
We definitely know that the team is way better under Tab, especially.
So those things take time, and the style of play has changed, and the attitude has changed. That is probably the hardest thing to change. Eventually, results will come, and to be a part of that growing, it was just something where it was a no-brainer. When we had the opportunity to resign, it was easy for my wife and I, and something that we're super excited about. And it does take time, and I know it's difficult as a fan. I mean, shit, I'm an Eagles fan. I've been through it all, man. So I get it. It takes time, but I'm excited to be a part of it. Maybe I rambled on too much, but I tried to give you a decent answer to that one.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great. Yeah, don't worry about rambling on. Like we do podcasts, so that's all we do is just ramble on and on and on.
I mean, speaking of podcasts,
we got the Callaway. We got a golfer over here. You watching the Masters?
Yeah.
Speaking of podcasts, you used to run a podcast, eh?
Yeah, we saw the YouTube video.
Yeah, we saw the YouTube video. How did that?
Then kids happened, bro. And Jeff had one that was cool, but it's just Jeff once he had 2 kids, it was game over. It was lights out. Because you go from one where you can play 2v1, and then you get 2 and you're man against man, and it's brutal. So it was extremely difficult. It was fun though for a little bit, but now we just chat once every week or so.
Now you as a player, you definitely make it obvious that you want to get integrated in the community. And well, from a player's perspective, like what can be done to better the relationship between the club and the greater Houston area?
That's difficult because I haven't been here long enough.
Yeah.
I don't know what interacting with the community looks like in a normal year.
Yeah.
Everything I've done is
that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
I've done 5, 6, 7 virtual visits with MD Anderson, but never been to the hospital.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult for me to potentially say that. I think when you can expose players as much as possible, eventually the fans will get personally connected to players and show up for them. And at times, the fans will give players a little bit more grace because they say, hey, I know Mauro just had a kid, so he's probably sleep deprived. So if he doesn't play great, that's probably why. As opposed to immediately going, this guy didn't score a goal. And like, you know what? Like he just had a kid. His kid's waking up 3 times in the middle of the night. His kid's going to bed at 11. He's waking up at 1, 3, and 7. So Mauro's waking up every single time the baby wakes up. And guess what? He probably didn't sleep very well, which means he won't train as well, which means he may or may not show up really well on game day. But if the fans don't know that, then they don't realize it. So when it doesn't happen, it's not easy. But as a dad, I got it. I went through a stage where, like, my first week or two after playing with Cam, oh my goodness, I was awful. Nato scored. Shit, dude scored. You should have a baby every week.
Yeah.
But like at times, I think the more fans get to know players, then they're more invested and connected to them, which means they're more likely to come out and support them. Win or they're more likely to support them in the hard times, and then when things are great, it's even better because they know what the person's gone through and who they are as a person.
Yeah.
So sort of focusing on this season, excluding yourself, who was your Houston Dynamo MVP this year? You can't pick yourself. You can pick anybody else.
I would never pick myself.
We put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate. I prefer to be put on the spot. Tough question. I look at. Let me think. I'm trying to think of when people are on the field when they're not on the field.
Yeah.
My gut tells me it's either Memo or Darwin Surem.
Yeah.
Memo was great throughout the course of the year, but when Darwin came in, he changed the way we really played a lot, and his energy and his ball recoveries and the simplicity and some of that MLS savviness was something that the team really needed. So you could toss up between them. I think that the midfield is our engine. Those three guys in the middle. And Darwin didn't play he didn't play through Orlando or anything. He didn't play the first 5 games of the season.
Yeah.
And then he came in and things started looking more the way in which I think our team can look.
I think
the thing is, keep going.
I think that's what me and Luke commented. Like after the Orlando tournament, we finally saw like the way that Tab wants to implement the team, and we mentioned. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we mentioned
And also,
no problem. For me, it's either Darwin or Memo. I think just the way they both play when they're fully healthy and rested and stuff like that. That's just like the engine. Tab said they're the lungs of the team, and they are though because the amount of running that these guys have to do to press and to leave their spots, and it's difficult. And it's a lot to ask, but it's also if you can embrace it. I know they both love just trucking around the field. It's great, and I had the pleasure of having either one of those guys on my side at different times, and it's been enjoyable playing with them.
So you played against.
What do you guys think?
I personally, Memo is like definitely my pick. We love him. He's from Houston. He came up through the academy.
Memo.
So we're big Memo fans. After, of course, Zarek Valentin would be our number one. So you played against your former team in the MLS's back tournament. Even under awkward situations with, the pandemic and everything. What was that like, getting to play against your former club and,
seeing some of your former teammates?
It was one of these situations where I knew 95% of those people extremely well, like their kids, everything.
Yeah.
And I had so many inside jokes where I remember when I rolled up, it was weird because in MLS's back, the locker rooms aren't locker rooms. They're just 2 trailers that are literally within 20 feet from each other. So then you put your training room tables on and everybody's there. And so when I got in, I said all my hellos. Joke, people started going because I'm funny. Like I have a joke there, so they started flying. And I said, I have to get away from this. So I went. So the previous game against LAFC, I did all my prehab outside.
Yeah.
There was more room because I'm talking about trailers, so everyone's packed in there.
Yeah.
And then when we played the Timbers, I had to go away from them. I said I don't want anyone coming up to me and talking to me because I don't want to. Everyone wants to ask how Liz is, and they're good, like they're nice people, but I need to get zoned in. And so I actually went away, and I had played so many games, or with them because I didn't start every game, so it felt normal to me. When I played against the first team, I was like, I've done this, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 times in my career where the day before the game I'm not starting. So I'm playing against Sebastian Blanco and Valeri's there and Villafaña's overlapping and Chara. So I was so used to that it didn't really hit me as much since there weren't any fans. I think if I was at Providence Park, I think it would have been a lot different. I think that emotion would have been a lot different than an empty stadium in Orlando, especially just because, again, like I said, I wasn't a starter that started every game and was so not used to playing against Blanco. I played against him every day in training. And people always say that, but it's different playing 5 against 5 against somebody to when it's 11-11. And I knew the way he kind of played. So if you look at the game, I tried to play it in a way in which I forced him to go into the midfield and run away from me to receive the ball. Because I know that for me, the further away from he is from the goal, then the less dangerous he is. And I think if you look at their first goal, he runs into the midfield and I kind of follow him a bit. And then Chara quickly plays him the ball and he turns and then plays Jeremy into the channel. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, like, this is exactly what I didn't want him to do, but like he can still hurt the game. But it was just interesting and, you know, kicking guys a little bit and giving them, you know, just some
got it. A little
bit of trash talk.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm more pissed because I really wanted to win that game. I hate losing.
Yeah.
More than anything. I've told people this. I hate losing more than I enjoy winning.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make any sense?
I never like heard it put that way, but that definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, if you win, it's like, yay, we win. Before we go to the next one. If you lose, you sit on that for like 4 days and you're like, I can't believe it lost. That performance, it stinks. Oh, it sucks. But if you win, it's like, cool. And then, okay, let's look at the rest of the league. Who, you know, we're moving up. Let's do this. Let's do that. So I hate losing. And that one was one I really wanted. And I really wanted to win that one. But we'll get it next year.
Now, I think a lot of us can agree that one of the highest points of the season was that stretch of the 3-game win stretch and I believe 6-game unbeaten stretch. But I think a lot of us can agree also that one of the lowest points of the season was possibly losing Elise, him getting sold. I want to ask, what was the locker room feel after Elise had gotten sold, after y'all gotten the word?
It's different because he was such a good player. I've had the pleasure of playing with some really good wingers in my day. You know, I talk about Blanco and I talk about Albert, and they're both so different, and they're both so good in different ways.
Yeah.
And I remember playing with Albert, and outside backs were so worried about him attacking that they didn't even want to go forward. We played Dallas at home. They played 5 in the back because Albert went 1v4 once and somehow managed to get a cross off. Literally, it was a center back. It was the winger that tracked back, ran past me, holding mid in the center back, and he managed to somehow get through 4 and get across. And I was thinking, man, I've never seen somebody attract that much attention. And I played with Dr. Nagby and these, you know, a few really good players. And he would just he would make the other team play differently. Teams would change the formation to worry about one player. I've never seen that. And it's just a testament to how good of a player he was. And he was a good dude too. And it's tough. You can't replace somebody like that. It's really difficult. And you've probably heard Tab say this, and he said it a few times. We still created a lot of goals. We still had so many expected goals, top 5, I think, in the league. And sometimes they just don't go in, and that's just the game, the sport we play. You know, it's not one of these things where you create more baskets in basketball, and you know you're probably gonna win those games. And soccer doesn't necessarily happen that way. So it was difficult, and you know, you acknowledge that he's gone, but you can't dwell on it and you can't change anything. And you have to kind of move forward and just try to go forward the best as possible. But he was a heck of a player to play with. I was really lucky to have that time, and I enjoyed it to the fullest because, my God, he was top 3 worst players I hated going against. I'd rather go against Carlos Vela any day of the week. Albert was brutal.
He's pretty good in FIFA. Hey, you got a pretty good FIFA card, you know.
Decent. I've worked it out.
It's
I think I'm
decent, man. It's a decent card.
Listen, I've worked my entire life to get a decent FIFA card because the few times that they've done my face, I don't know if I have it. I'm going to send it to you. They've completely screwed me over with my FIFA, how I look in FIFA. I look like a gremlin, like Shrek.
FIFA is not the fairest in MLS, and I hate that. But yeah, man.
You know, the worst part was we were one of 3 teams in Portland that got our whole head scanned. And they still came out with this garbage display of what my face looked. I look like Shrek. But it's a disaster.
So, as we kind of wrap this up, we just wanted to know, who's your pick to win the 2020 MLS Cup? Who do you think?
Yep.
As a player, if you had to put your money on somebody.
If I had to put my money on somebody, yeah, it just sucks how you have to do this. I'll do it for the sake of the conversation. I'll give you a final.
Okay.
Right? I'll give you a final. My final is Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh.
I hate
Dang.
I hate Seattle.
Yeah.
I think Seattle, because Portland also had a bunch of injuries. Their 2 DPs are injured.
Yeah.
I'll take Seattle against Philly.
Yeah. That's what I would have said. Yeah.
Toronto's good. Toronto, Philly, and Orlando are good. I think that Toronto and Philly are the best 2 teams out of the East. Orlando's good. I think that, for me, their defense might be the weak point that crushes them. The issue is Andre Blake is out for the season.
Oh, he did. I saw that.
So that's a tough one because for me, I voted for him for goalkeeper of the year, and I think I might have voted him for MVP because he's a baller. He's really good. But you could coin flip between the teams in the East. I think Seattle right now is good. And we had a tough break. How many times we played KC 4 times, we played Dallas 4 times, Minnesota 4. Like, these are all good playoff teams that we had to play consistently.
Yeah.
Nashville, we played a lot of these teams, and I think it challenged our team. I think we grew because of it, but it just sucks. So for me, I'm not picking a winner. I'll pick Seattle and Philly. I'm a Philly guy. Let's go with Philly, bro. I'm going to give them that props because I think that they can do it and be one of the first teams, well, since Seattle, I guess, to win Supporter Shield and do the final.
This will be their first,
since Toronto, sorry.
This will be the first MLS Cup final victory, right? Philadelphia?
This was their first trophy, the Supporter Shield.
That is their first trophy.
It'd be their first. What do you guys think?
Philly. I think Philly's going to win, honestly.
I think LAFC is like a sneaky team that could, you know what I mean? Like, that's a team that could sneak its way into the final. Like,
the issue is they've had such like a rocky season by their standards.
Yeah.
People aren't talking about them as much.
People are,
If they beat Seattle in the first round, like, no one would say anything. Like, what am I going to say? Like, oh my God, what an upset.
It's
that's fine. Vela scored 2. The biggest thing is a lot of teams, almost every single team has people missing for international duty. It's just a matter of
yeah.
Even you, Puerto Rico, huh?
Don't worry about that, baby. But you figure, you look at these, like in South America, they're having World Cup qualifying.
Yeah.
And Andy Polo's there, I know that. I saw, and Mora's at Chile, and there's a few. I think the Dallas 10 Riquarte is out as well. So there's a few people. I know with quarantine rules, I wonder how that affects things. It's just going to be interesting how that works, and ultimately where teams go and how they fall in the grand scheme of things. Because when you lose some of your best players for those moments, look at Seattle. They lose potentially Ladero and their forward Rudy Diaz.
Yeah.
And if they were injured, there's no chance I'm picking them to come out because how influential those guys are. Rudy Diaz is one of my favorite forwards in the league because of his effort and his goal scoring ability. He's really good. Can't stand the fact that he plays for Seattle. But I can recognize good players and validate them wherever they're at. We didn't play Seattle this year. It's just crazy. We didn't play some of these teams.
Yeah.
We didn't play Seattle. We didn't play San Jose. We didn't play Vancouver. We didn't play
a ton of
exactly
half the teams.
We could have played Vancouver San Jose.
Yeah, we could have used this. Yeah.
But there's one more thing. Usually when we gotten one player on the podcast, Sam
Any guests, really, we all ask them, if you could just say for the audio, I'm Zarek Valentin and you're listening to Keeping Tabs.
We use that as an intro for our podcasts.
Of course. I'm Zarek Valentin and you're listening to Keeping Tabs.
All right, perfect.
Nice.
Thank you again, man, for coming on the show. It really means a lot. We're trying to grow, and we cover the Dynamo, and we're glad to have you part of the team next year, and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, dudes. I appreciate it. No, it was fun. It was I enjoyed it. It was great.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see you in the preseason, huh?
Yeah, maybe we could get you on again.
You let me know. I'll always come back. I'm a friendly face.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you, man. Have a good one,
guys. Thanks a lot. Take care.
You too.
Yeah.